Welcome to Say It, I Dare You, the podcast where we pull apart the personal meaning of taboo and hard to say words and phrases with some lovely guests and some gentle peer pressure. Today we are talking about the word layoffs. The term layoffs typically refers to the temporary or permanent loss of a job due to reasons unrelated to performance, like a restructuring within a company or budgeting. Especially since the COVID-19 pandemic began, many folks have experienced layoffs, with tech companies specifically seeing mass layoffs as the industry shifts more towards automated work. To those who have been laid off, this word also just means that you've suddenly lost your job, which is something that can be life-altering, confidence-crushing, stress-inducing, etc., etc. It also causes a lot of shame, and we're going to talk about it. I'm Quinn, and today I'm joined by Jenna, a soft soul who got the shit end of the stick for 3 back-to-back layoffs and has agreed to share all of the shame and secrets of getting through such a hard time. Hi, Jenna. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm excited for this talk. Jenna is a marketer with a special knack for building relationships and bringing people together. She's a singer-songwriter, a storyteller, a community builder, and a self-proclaimed activist in training. And she has also been through multiple layoffs before landing her current role where she is a lot happier. Graduating into the pandemic economy, she experienced layoffs from multiple roles in a short amount of time, causing her to rethink what it meant to lose your job, to find yourself, and to let go of the stigma of being laid off. She is a bright light in a conversation about hard and scary things, and I hope some folks listening today can find comfort in her wise words. So, Jenna, as every episode starts, I want to know in your own words why you relate to this episode topic.
Right. So I relate to it mainly because it happened to me more than once, as you just described. I don't think I really thought about layoffs before they became a part of my life. So in terms of why I relate, just personal experience. And also in my current role, I do encounter a lot of really wonderful people who have also gone through layoffs because, as you said, it's actually super normal these days.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm constantly like, all I want to do is like hug them and make them feel better and let them know what I've come to know a little bit more clearly. Anyway, so that's, I think, a combination of just like what I went through, but also like the empathy I have for everybody that's
going through
it now.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like it's at least once a month where I at least know someone who knows someone who's going through or has been through a layoff. And it's detrimental. It's hard on folks. So why do you think people feel uncomfortable admitting that they've been laid off or talking about being laid off?
Oh man. I think the obvious answer is that people kind of inextricably link it to their self-worth unintentionally a lot of the time. And obviously there's some people who have done a lot of work around, or maybe just were born with a lot of confidence and never had that problem in the first place. That wasn't me.
Fuck
and the majority of people I know.
What's it like?
What's it like? I don't know. I think that there is a very conventional linear sense of failure around having lost your job, period. Leaving an opportunity involuntarily straight up just feels bad. Especially given like wherever you're at in life, there are always different nuances. So I don't want to say like, oh, in my case it was worse than it would have been for someone in this situation. That's not the case. We all have different reasons for why it is so hard to talk about, hard to admit, hard to overcome. So I can only speak to my personal experiences with that. For me, and for maybe anybody who is also earlier on in their career, is still becoming a person and like learning their values. And, you know, I really entered the workforce in 2021 and my first layoff was in 2022 and they kind of just kept coming. So there was a lot of like, I was still going through that fundamental career growth in the beginning, in terms of how I show up. And so these experiences and sort of the shame that ends up unfortunately tied up in it for a lot of us, is just really, really hard to shake. And, you know, even though you can consciously and logically know, you know, this isn't my fault. This doesn't prove that I am, in fact, you know, not good enough or whatever the line in your head is saying. It's, I feel like I'm rambling at this point.
That's the whole point of this. You're good. You got it. I think you nailed it on the head right away in a point that comes to mind for me is that our careers are so ingrained in who we are as people, whether we are the type of people to believe that that is a value or not. It is what society values. It is what we spend the majority of our daylight hours doing. So it's important, but it's not everything, but it feels like it's everything. And then of course, like the financial ties, like it just is the literal sake of losing your job is also losing your lifeline, your rent, your mortgage payments, your grocery bills. You lose your stability and your safety and your housing sometimes. So self-worth aside, I definitely think like it's scary to talk about because also like there was a finance episode for a reason. Money's scary to talk about. Money creates a lot of shame. But yeah, when you and I first ever started talking about how you got laid off multiple times in a row, and then of course subsequently we were like, we should do a podcast about it. I felt for you because like, you know, I get like one bad and I say bad lightly, I get one piece of feedback that's not delivered kind enough for the mood I'm in that day, and I'm like, I suck at my job.
Been there. So still there a little bit. It's
hard. So I can't imagine having that influence, that experience continuing to influence how I show up at work.
Like I go to therapy. I talk a lot about the evidence we collect, unintentionally or intentionally so. And unfortunately, layoffs can really feel like evidence that correct, your fears were valid. Like as someone who has done years of therapy, it has been instilled in me that like the best way to make it feel better, the best way to handle shame is to speak about it. I say that having practiced it for years, and I still fucking suck at it. Like it's really, really hard and scary, but I think it's a big and scary part of this conversation. So like you've used the word devastation before when we're talking about this, describing your experience. So tell me more about that and like what came up for you when it came to shame in layoffs. Yeah, totally. I think like the word devastation hits like just in the first initial blow, especially like, you know, it's not the most devastating thing that can happen to you. I want to make that clear. Like, you know, a job is a job and it is tied to your livelihood, and losing it is awful and can have really detrimental effects, but there are obviously still worse things that can happen. But the devastation I think comes from, especially if it's your first time experiencing a layoff, or even, like I said, losing a job involuntarily. It was the first time that had ever happened to me. And I think that a lot of people, especially like in the community that you and I met through and my current role, Grow Class as well, like a lot of us kind of jokingly but honestly talk about being like the older sister vibe or the like project finisher, the type A, like, you know, we really want to do well. And yes, a lot of that is linked to self-worth. A lot of that is just like excitement about what you're doing, and regardless of where it comes from, it's real. And I think that devastation comes from like, oh no, this is so not me. This is not how it was supposed to go. And for me, that first time, like, because again, it happened like 1 year out of having graduated school. And I think a lot of people can relate to the experience of like, I was very privileged to be able to go continue my studies after high school. You know, I did that for 5 years straight, did co-op. It was awesome. You know, I felt like I worked really hard, and then I started working immediately right out of graduation, full time, like. And so it just sort of felt like, okay, I did all the things, and like the logical next step is that I get the job and I do the job and I do it well, and then maybe I get promoted, and then, you know, the linear it continues, right? And that obviously was not the case. So I think the devastation was sort of the like, oh no, I've fallen from where I felt like I needed to be for whatever reasons that are internalized or socialized, whatever. And then also, obviously, as you said, the devastation of like, okay, well, what now? Especially, I think, if you are working in tech or in a field that is increasingly changing with like AI tools and automation and like saving money. Also, if you're young in your career, you're earlier on and you've just joined the company, like, unfortunately, a lot of times it's like, what is it, last hired first to go or something like that?
When layoffs happen.
Exactly. So maybe you can help me bring it back to the question you asked.
Well, and the question was just like, what comes up with shame? And I feel like you've answered it in so many helpful ways already, where it's like, it's just, you can reason and logic your way to an understanding of why something happened. And at the end of the day, it doesn't stop you from being like, but are you sure I'm not just a piece of shit?
Do you know how many times I've asked the people I love that?
Yeah. I literally asked my boss today, I was like, I don't think I'm doing a good job. And she was like, shut up, Quinn. But like, it happens to the best of us. And I think hustle culture doesn't help, especially fresh out of college, because I also, like, I started my marketing career in the music industry fresh out of college. And then the music industry crumbled and dissipated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. And both my partner and I were like, I don't think I want to do that anymore.
That's the devastation.
That's
that
the
right
devastation.
There. What do you do then? If that's,
but it was my choice.
Right.
And it was still devastating.
Right.
I can't imagine being like, I'm fresh out of college. I have this job. Sony Music Canada hired me. Like, it was really cool to tell people that. It was not,
so
it was
cool.
not a cool job. Loved my boss, loved the people. It wasn't the job for me.
Right.
But it sounded really cool and people were so proud of me. So I was like, look at me doing that thing everybody wants me to do. Me with a music degree, doing a music job, told you mom. And now I don't do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you live in a LinkedIn world, if you're a LinkedIn human, I was like I work in marketing and I was big on LinkedIn at the time, talking about the role that I was doing and like posting pictures and like saying how proud I was to be a part of the team and all this other stuff. And then it's like, oh no, now I have to tell all those people that I got let go.
Yeah.
And I need a job.
Yeah.
Again.
Like hashtag looking for work.
Yeah.
There's actually, what's your take on that? If for anyone who doesn't know or who isn't like a LinkedIn girly, which not a title I think most people want, but like if you work in business, you kind of have to be. You can change your profile picture to have like a filter on it that says looking for work, and you can like add to your profile that you're searching for work. There's a lot of discourse around whether or not it's like tasteless.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think so. Shoot your shot. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think everybody has a different opinion on this. I think absolutely go for it. I don't see what's wrong with the open to work banner. Like, yeah, I'm open to work. I don't need to be covert about that so that you think that I'm highly coveted and like really want, like, I don't want to play games. We already have to play a lot of games, you know, professionally speaking, I think. And I think, again, something we talk about in Grow Class a lot, and just in general, anybody who cares about community and like the power of unity and, you know, collective action and discourse, can see that, like, you know, Sarah always says like no one succeeds in a vacuum, I think is the line. And however you want to say that, it's true. Like, and it's, we'll get to this, I'm sure, but like the progression after the layoff and then the next one. And then the next one. And then also the job I have now, literally all of them came from like having conversations with other people. A few times it was a LinkedIn post where I threw the banner up and I did a whole post where I was like, well, this thing happened to me and I'm trying not to make it seem like I'm whining about it on LinkedIn, but also if you know of anyone who's looking, here's what I do, blah, blah, blah. Because you do have to do that. And I've had people ask me as well, like, is that something I shouldn't do because I don't want to, you know, come across as like needy or whatever, especially the second time. Of course. Oh my God. I hated posting the second time. Because I was like,
the first time you're like, I'm brave, I can do it. And then you're like, well, fuck.
And I'm like, oh God, it's been not that long. And here I am again, friends. But again, like, what do you have to lose? I think that people who put you in a box or hold that against you, that's on them.
That's a them problem.
And there is some truth to you wouldn't want to work for them anyway kind of vibe. And I, again, get like that comes from a really privileged place. And sometimes you just need a job and you just need to jump through the hoops and be the kind of person they want to hire. You know what I mean?
But if you're in a place where you have the privilege to focus more on career building and what you want to do, like those things are important. We talk about like networking, I think, a lot, just because this podcast is from the perspective of a marketer. And I think I've repped Grow Class 100 times on this, and like it's just a podcast about the founder Sarah at this point, who I think Hi Sarah. This episode comes out after your episode, so you guys will all hear Sarah's wonderful words.
Incredible.
Link in bio. I have an affiliate code. However, great segue into the next question, because Grow Class is this community of marketers and learners and people who are doing kick-ass things while trying to be kind and supportive and make career into community and not busting ass to like just be the best, because being the best is actually being kind and happy, not being rich and controlling. I want to know what resources or tools you use to overcome your shame. And I know Grow Class is one of them.
Yeah.
But tell me more about others.
Yeah, totally. So I mentioned I go to therapy. I think that, like, again, privilege is a piece of that. If you have an opportunity to take advantage of some sort of therapy, and you're able to find one that you feel comfortable with, definitely pursue the heck out of that if you're not doing it already. That's the first thing. I think another piece of it is this made me feel so much shame as it was happening, but looking back helped a lot. I had a lot of like coffee chats with people in the like sort of like early weeks of having been laid off from people who heard about it or were working with me and now suddenly weren't, or you know, maybe in that scenario I'd posted on LinkedIn and somebody reached out, but like a lot of really good, compassionate conversations from people who were just like, hey, I'm really sorry that happened. I would love to just like chat with you, check in on you, like see if I can help, or like, you know, and at the time I hated it because I was like, oh, everyone's like taking pity on me. Like, you know, I think when you're feeling shame already, there's a sense of like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to have to be another thing on your to-do list to like chat with Jenna because she's in the dumps about having lost her job again or whatever. You know what I mean? Nobody wants that. But then I look back and I'm like, no, there was so much strength and like camaraderie that I got from those calls. Yeah. And I wasn't a burden to them. You're not a burden to people. Yeah. We're lucky to have you.
I agree. I think like community outside of even just career community is so important when you're going through a hard thing. And also I think we talked about this in the death episode with Gloria, where it was like, it's also one of the hardest things when you're feeling an emotion that is anything other than joy and excitement. It's really hard to invite people into that emotion with you, shame being one of them, because it's like, what do you do? Like, get back up, dust yourself off, pay your fucking rent.
And to be honest, I'm just gonna be totally real with you. Like, I was obviously pretty miserable for a chapter there, and I didn't know my next move, and it didn't feel good. Like you know, and a lot of me at the time wanted to isolate, to be honest. I think there's a lot of like, I think that's pretty common, right? Like, we, like you said, we're not feeling joy. Yeah. I don't want to be around you when I'm miserable and like uncertain and whatever,
which is so interesting as a self-proclaimed empath, and I know you and I are very similar in this way, because I would never dare to tell someone who is sad that they cannot be around me.
Absolutely. In fact, fucking not.
I would invite them aggressively to let me join them in their like I would never ever even think to judge someone for being sad, stressed, scared, out loud. Like, and then I'm like, I won't even tell you if I've stubbed my toe, because I'm like, no, I can't bring you into this. Like, it's really scary.
Like, I want to sit in the mud with other people when they're sad.
Yes.
But when I'm sad, it's like,
nobody wants to do that for me.
Exactly. And it's somebody said to me recently, like, have you ever thought about it in the sense of like, it's going to make them also feel good and more connected to be there for you. And so by letting them help, you're actually like still doing a good thing. Like, it's not like you're only taking. And people want to help. That's another big thing that I think came out of this. Like, people do want to offer their time and services and advice if they can, more often than not, obviously within reason. But like, let them. And I know how awful that feels. Like, it makes me physiologically like sweat, freeze up. Like, I'm like Tina Belcher, if anybody walks.
And asking too, if you don't have people already beside you going, let me help, to go like, wave my white flag, I need help, to do the open to work sign.
Exactly. Especially more than once.
Girl, I'm sorry.
I mean, no, it is what it is.
Yeah. It would have been hard. Did you have anyone in your orbit who reacted negatively or like judged you?
No, one thing on the, I know,
I was gonna be like, give me their name. Who are they?
I'm not obviously gonna name any names, but there was one person who made a post around the same time as like a thought leadership post as you do on LinkedIn.
Yes.
They were a man. Yeah. And they were like, you know, layoffs are not really a big deal. Layoffs are, and like the whole post was basically like, you know, it's actually a gift. It's actually can be the moment, depending on what you make of it, can be the moment that you suddenly realize what you actually want to do, or the company you really want to start, or decide to be your own boss so you'll never get let go again. And hey, I'm not knocking that. If that gets you going, I love that for you. Have
Yes.
fun. You know what I mean?
But that's a hot take from someone who's probably never been laid
well,
off.
exactly. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that was like aimed at me, and it wasn't like I was receiving that feedback, but it was sort of like the discourse that I was seeing online around the time that I was going through it, that I was like, oh, is this like the attitude I'm supposed to have? Because I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's only so much you can do. And it's like, I need to get another job so I can pay my bills.
Yes.
And I don't feel like starting a company because I'm really depressed right now.
Yeah.
So
now what? That actually, like, my next question was about that, because I know that for some people, getting laid off is like this catalyst for growth. I'm going to start a family. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to change. For me, I wasn't laid off from Sony Music. I chose to leave because I didn't like it, but it was a catalyst for me to start looking into a different career path.
Yeah.
When people turn layoffs into these like inspirational stories, it often includes some sort of like unforeseen, perfectly timed success, but that's not the case for everyone. And for a lot of people, it just sucks. Like, it's just like, well, fuck.
It's just like, oh, now I also have to go find a job again and pay all the bills and do all the things. And
and process what you just went through.
God forbid, process.
I know. Did you feel the pressure to like learn from it? Like financially, personally, socially? Were you like, am I supposed to do something different?
Yes, definitely. Because capitalism.
Yes.
Also, personal note, I studied at like University of Waterloo. You live in Toronto, so you've probably heard the whole like Kitchener, Toronto corridor.
Oh yes, Kitchener, Waterloo.
Entrepreneur, Silicon Valley of the North.
Yes.
Blah blah blah. I'm not knocking. I love it. I do. I'm just trying to say that I think if you also come from an environment or a community, and a lot of your connections are also of that sort of like just society. It's like it's the way that our little corner of the world has kind of taken shape over the last few years. There was a lot of like, I don't want to have to let these people know that I in fact don't feel like this is a catalyst. Do you know what I mean? Like there's I guess that ingrained sense you were talking about. All my previous experiences leading up to getting into my career sort of instilled that sense of like just entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be your own boss.
For yourself.
Build something for yourself. I definitely felt that pressure because of all of, I think, the narratives that I ingested is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
However, I think mainly the pressure was to like pay the bills.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. And I think maybe pressure isn't the right word, but almost like a disappointment in myself.
I hate that word.
I know, it's gross. It sucks. It's an awful feeling. And I say that like I identify with it that way because of course I wanted to feel catalyzed.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think I was disappointed to find that actually I was just down.
Yeah. And you took some space with that, right? What was it? Your third time's the charm?
Third time's the charm. So yeah, really quickly, I'll just say first time didn't really take a lot of time. I was like on the job hunt pretty much right away, employed within 2 months, very gratefully blessed, etc. Connections, again, community, asking for help. And then it happened again less than a year later. And that time I took even less time off. I was like, all right, nope, I've been through this before. I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
Messaged a friend, got a new whatever, it was great at the time. By the end of the same month I had been laid off, I had signed a new permanent full-time contract at an agency, no less, which if anybody has ever worked for an agency, it's pretty fast-paced, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say any marketers either cringe at that word or or get very excited.
Well, and I was coming from the tech startup life anyway. So it was like, how different can it be? You know?
Yeah, fast-paced to fast-paced.
Yeah, but you know, and I think a lot of marketers as well take that route. That's their advice to you. And someone had actually given me that advice of like, well, maybe a next move would be to work at an agency so you get a ton of experience doing all kinds of different projects.
Yeah.
And yes, and I also got the experience that I didn't really want to work for an agency, I don't think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's okay. So yeah, I think the pressure was definitely there. I'll let you kind of move on to your next question.
Well, because I think when the third time's the charm happened for you, you took some time to rest this time. And I know in our conversations that to you was that time where you're like, am I supposed to be inspired to be an entrepreneur? Am I supposed to move on?
Yes.
And instead you took a moment to go, no, I'm just going to let it suck. And I think that's a good lesson for a lot of people who are in a privileged enough position to do so.
Exactly.
Even if you're not in a privileged enough position to take a month, take a day. Get off LinkedIn, get off your phone, don't talk to people about it, just go like stare at birds.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't doom scroll on LinkedIn. Like the best thing I did for myself was like, it was actually because my roommate was like, dude, you got it, this isn't healthy.
Yeah.
Like, is giving yourself a time block and being like, I'm looking for jobs from like 1 to 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and apart from that I'm doing these other things that, you know, it's not that you're not still looking for a job, but maybe you're upskilling, maybe you're joining a community, maybe you're trying to go to networking events, but like doing other pieces that aren't just like scroll,
at jobs
apply,
that you don't hear back from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. But to your point, yes, after the last layoff experience that I've had, I took 4 months. Again, want to acknowledge the privilege that allowed me to be able to take that space and time. But I will also say one teeny tiny silver lining with layoffs is that you usually get some sort of severance package, or at least the ability to get EI, employment insurance. So yeah, I think there was a lot of shame for me before going back to that. And like, I don't want to have to end up on EI. Like there's for some reason, there's a weird stigma around that too, I think. Like, but
it's all the like finance bros being like, those people using our EI for wrong things, whatever.
Like, I've been paying into it.
Yeah, I literally paid into it my entire life without choice.
Whether I like it or not. So take the EI if you get it. My God, just do it.
Yeah.
You can still job hunt, but also take the EI. Maybe other people were doing this the whole time. I don't know. But for me,
maybe it's just us like shame spiralers who are like, I am too good for EI, which is a disgusting thought that I don't actually believe in, but that we're ingrained to want.
Well, it's shameful. There's like you need the government's help to pay or something. Yeah. Or maybe also a weird feeling of like, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve that break. I don't deserve that money because I didn't work hard enough and I got let go. And like, you know, whatever is holding you back from potentially just doing the EI thing. Maybe it's just the cognitive load of like, it's annoying and you have to like do the whole thing and like call someone and whatever, do it. And then stay on it as long as you can. One thing I would love to say is that something that helped a lot during that 4-month period, and I'll get into like the other things, but was giving myself sort of like for me, I did 4 scenarios that I literally mapped out on a blank piece of paper and taped on my bedroom wall. And I was like, all right, best case scenario. Like if ZJ says this a lot, what if the best thing happened or whatever? What's the best thing that could happen? And I think challenging your brain to work that way in a moment of devastation or, you know, feeling helpless, hopeless, whatever, is really powerful. It might feel ridiculous and you might not be able to come up with much, but give it time, you know, it'll help you realize what you do actually want. And then from there, I just backtracked. I was like, okay, so if this is the best case scenario, like finance wise, whatever's important to you. For me at this point, it was very much, I want to work with people I really like. I want to have values that align with the company. And I want my nervous system to feel as good as possible so that I can continue my life outside of work and other things. I'm a musician, like you said, like I want to learn about activism, blah, blah, blah. And you can't do that when you feel like you're in survival mode. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So yeah, taking that time, the 4 scenarios, it was like a best case, and then it was like a second best case, and then it was like this would be okay, but not super ideal, and then this would be like quote unquote worst case. Yeah. And then for each one, I tried to be like, what's the amount of time in which I'm willing to hold out and wait for this best case before I start compromising? And if I have to start compromising for the very real thing of like paying your bills and whatever, we all have to do it. Then where do I start? Where does the compromising start? Is it pay? Is it value alignment? Is it team? Is it seniority level? Like kind of picking. And so for that really helped me like lead into my next move with those values and apply to roles that reflected them and not apply to ones that didn't. And that's not to say that, of course, you sometimes get to a point in a job search where you're like, I'll take anything, I just need a job. Yes. Of course. Then we go to like the worst case scenario. Yeah. And
but you don't have to start there.
No. And then also when you're doing that plan, like it's not like you just write down the worst case scenario and put it up on a wall. What I did was I was like, I put out the worst case scenarios and then I put out like what I would realistically do in those situations, what social supports exist for me, who's in my corner. Yeah. You know, what could I do to bring in an income in some other way? Like can I apply myself at least to have some purpose?
Yes.
In volunteering or something. Like, give yourself kind of like a vision for each scenario, and keep obviously planning for the best case scenario. But if you're an anxious lady like me, or not lady, whatever, that was something that helped a lot.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I too am I'm a bright side person, or try to be, which is something that just stems from like years of very much not being that, and like being in the dumps about it.
Yeah.
And it's a process that has truly changed my life.
Yeah.
To be like, but what if it goes well?
Yeah.
I like to call it unhinged confidence, where like people are always like, you're so confident. I'm like, no. I show up like this in hopes that it goes well. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but it's an unhinged confidence. I don't feel deserving of this confidence, but I'm doing it anyway.
Wow.
Because it's the best case scenario. It's going to get me the things that I want.
Delulu?
I think it's, it's corporate girly Delulu.
Corporate girly Delulu. I love that.
Probably.
Oh man. Yeah. I guess if you can cultivate a little bit of that, some audacity.
Exactly. Yeah. And men have it all the time. So why can't I? But I call it unhinged confidence, because my shame and my sadness and my worst case scenario anxiety believes that confidence is not deserved.
Yeah.
But I'm unhinged about it, so I do it anyway, and usually it does me pretty well.
Yeah.
Like I happen into
like the fake it till you make it approach.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But hard on my sleeve. So the reason why fake it till you make it doesn't resonate with me, my mom used to always say it, fake it till you make it. And I'm like, conceptually, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Fake, not a word I like to embody. Is my unhinged confidence? It is a real confidence. It is within me. Otherwise it wouldn't come out. But it's basically me saying, I'm going to not let the shame and imposter syndrome be the speaker in this spot. But I will show up with my unhinged confidence and say, I feel imposter syndrome loudly. That's the heart on my sleeve part.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need an unhinged confidence, or a bit of Delulu, or a fake it till you make it attitude, whatever sits right with you, to go through the devastation of a job loss and be like, I'm going to apply to something different.
Yeah. Because
no job description says absolutely every skill that you have, and that sucks.
Absolutely. And maybe it's not another job. Maybe you do have a catalyst and you want to try something new. And that's also something that you're going to need.
Yeah.
Time and space to process and cultivate a little bit of, as you say, like unhinged confidence. And if it helps to own up to, hey, I'm doing this thing and I do have imposter syndrome, and like say it like
as it is,
just be real. Even with this conversation today, initially when you asked me if I wanted to talk about this, I was like, I don't know, because I have reservations about like not wanting to come off as I'm like lingering on it too long, or whatever sort of the narratives I'm assuming people will make up in their heads about it are.
Yeah. It's easiest to judge yourself.
Exactly. But it helped a lot to be like, well, I can say that in this conversation. Like I don't have to hide that. It's okay.
It doesn't make you unhireable.
No,
it doesn't.
It makes you honest.
Yeah.
And I've always struggled with this, genuinely. I think like the honesty and professionalism line and walking that line. And I've always said that my approach to work centers around like authenticity. That's quite the buzzword, as we know. But like, the idea that I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and I'm going to say what's on my mind, and respectfully, obviously.
Yes.
But I'm not going to, conceal all of it. And I think the layoffs made me feel like I did need to conceal a lot more of who I am, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I think part of the overcoming the layoffs was like reclaiming at least a little bit more back of that authenticity and that honesty, and that like I can be who I am, and I will figure it out. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to figure it out if I'm constantly masking, burning myself out doing so, and straight up winding up in positions that I don't even think I wanted.
Yeah. You know I mean? You were just doing it because you needed, that was the thing that you were expected to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like scarcity in our capitalist society, like it comes from that a lot, and that's incredibly valid. Of course you're going to be nervous to be who you are if it means you're not going to be able to pay your bills or whatever, but it's just a balance we're going to have to continuously walk. And I think like it's really meaningful to be someone who's willing to continue exploring that line in the way that you show up with work. Like when do you need to mask? When can you maybe take that mask down a little bit and be more honest about what your needs are, how you're feeling, where you want to go, even like at the company, or what you want to do next, what you want to study. Like, it's worth it because it normalizes it, I hope, for other people as well. And like, if you end up being the person who challenged your CEO to think about, I don't know, neurodivergence or just hustle culture.
I was going to say being queer in tech.
Any number of things that might feel scary to like fully show up as, and they don't like it, and it leads to something like a layoff or a whatever, you're still going to be that person who made them think about something in a different way. Yeah. And I know that sucks, because what do you get from that? But you get, I guess, like, you honored your values. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I know you to be a strong-willed person in all of the right ways. We have very similar values, very similar moral compasses, and I knowing you the way I know you, we're brand new friends. But I feel like I'd
be able to tell.
I feel like I've known you for years. I do see, even in the little things, like your values really speaking in all of your actions, and I've witnessed it in a lot of really admirable ways, but it takes a lot of strength to be that way, especially because we often like make our job success a strong narrative of our personal success, winning, succeeding, climbing the ladder, etc. Did you ever like get stuck with the wrong focus in this process? Or like, do you feel like your values remain strong throughout each loss you went through? Or you said like you kind of took a step back and were like, maybe I'll change who I am so I fit better?
Yeah, my values changed a lot, I think. What I was looking for changed a lot. And like how I live my life too, a little bit. Like the first couple layoffs, I was doing the like remote work and travel thing. That was a huge difference. Yep. And like a lot of different values went into finding a job that would allow me to do that. Keep doing that. Love it. That's so awesome. And I'm very fortunate right now. I'm in a position where I could continue doing that, but I've changed so much to the point where like I want to like have roots and community and get to know my neighbors and like forge deep friendships. And I'm not knocking the travel work thing. Like it's also awesome. And maybe I'll do that again eventually. But yeah, the priorities have changed. The values that I let lead me into my next opportunity look so much different. Yeah. Like so much different now, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And do you think those values surfaced because of those losses?
Yeah, definitely. I realized how much time it takes. There's no shortcut to building deep, meaningful relationships with people in your life. And going to explore and travel and prioritizing money and I don't know, whatever other motivations you might have are all also valid, but they'll always be there. And you can always go from one to the other. But if you're always doing the like maximizing for profit and freedom and adventure and I don't know, the high life or whatever, you're missing a lot, you know, of the other side. And you will still have that work to do to deepen those relationships when you switch gears, if that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, just more of a focus on like deeper connections to my city, to my people, to my professional network who did help me out so many times and continues to, obviously. Yeah. I think that's.
I like that. I like that. Like, you know, we talked earlier about how everybody assumes success story. I'm going to change my life drastically. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I would argue to say that you changed your life drastically in a way that made your life better. And it didn't have to happen in the same storyline that it happens for other people.
No. And like over those 4 months, like I didn't just sit on the couch and grieve. I did do a lot of that and that's perfectly fine. But I focused on my music a lot. I learned about activism. I took a course at Concordia about the fundamentals of the solidarity economy. It's called SEAS. If anyone listening wants to check it out, it's free. It's dope. They do it online as well. It opened my mind up to all kinds of like frameworks outside of our existing social systems, shall we say, that maybe could be possible, but definitely are worth learning about and gathering around, organizing around. I learned about organizing. I went to a bunch of protests, Free Palestine, if I may use this opportunity to say that loudly. And I just got super fucking fired up about things that had nothing to do with like lowering customer acquisition cost or like, you know, like,
ouch.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not that that's not also good to know. It's just that we live in a society where you have to work 40 hours a week. And so you end up putting so much of your learning energy and your like passion toward those pieces, which are great.
It's if you spend too much of your life being so confident that you can lower customer acquisition cost. Lowering customer acquisition cost is a skill, not a value.
Yeah.
Is a really cool thing. We're like you marketing talk, like, sorry, but it's fascinating and wonderful. And it's really cool to see that you can do that in a career. But what does that do for your family? What does it do for your soul?
Exactly.
What does it do for your community, your economy, your like your outside world? Too often we intrinsically braid ourselves with like, I some days feel like my identity is a marketing qualified lead. I personally am no longer Quinn Palmer. I am an MQL.
An MQL.
I'm an MQL.
It's like I'm a non-playable character.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm a marketing version.
Because it's a big focus of my career. But it's not a big focus of my soul.
Exactly.
And it took me too long to figure that out.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things I wanted to hammer home when we talked about this initially is like understanding that we live in a society where there's not a lot of space to grieve and feel things all the way through in your body. And just the more time you can steal back, take it to do so. And also remember your inherent value and all the things that make you such a valuable asset to your community that have nothing to do with what you do to get a paycheck necessarily. Maybe they do. I don't know. Good for you if so.
Yeah.
But it's not the norm. It's the exception, not the norm, I think, truly. And that's hard to accept that you're going to find something to do for work that hits all the purpose boxes and pays you enough, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
We know that. And it's okay to strive for that still someday. But in the meantime, give yourself space and compassion in the understand and like learn about it, read about it, like read The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, read Bullshit Jobs, read Burnout, like listen to Upstream podcast, like, or another one is Green Dreamer. I'm plugging other podcasts on your podcast.
Please
do.
No.
Listen to Say It, I Dare You.
Yeah. No, we're community uplifters here. Say whatever you need to say. They deserve listens.
But like learn about it so that you can instill in your neural pathways that like, it's not all because of you. You're not bad and wrong and therefore we're laid off and maybe laid off again or let go or didn't get the job in the first place. Whatever the situation is, like it's the larger system and we need to be hard on systems and soft on people. No, I didn't quote that, but I am going to drop it here because it's important.
Yeah. I love that. Do you know what that quote is from or no?
Good God, somebody drop it in the comments because I should.
Yeah. Well, no, it's fine. We'll figure it out. You
I
all know
got
how to
it
use
from a friend.
Yeah.
So I don't know for sure, but
you all know how to use Google, so do it. But hard on systems, soft on people. That's a really great takeaway.
That's it.
And you listed some really, really good resources. My last question for you before we wrap up is, does it ever get easier to talk about?
Yeah, it does. It's like any kind of grief, I think. Like you tend to your grief, the more you tend to it, the easier it is to talk about. And also you parse out obviously the silver linings, the pieces you learned, the values that it instilled in you, and then you lead with those values. And then it becomes less of a shameful story and also doesn't have to be your catalyst, coming of age, starting a business story, but it can just be, oh, I realized that like I can't compromise on XYZ.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
That's enough.
And it helps. Yeah, it gets easier.
You are enough, Jenna. And you are enough to anyone who's listening. This was incredible. I like have goosebumps. I feel very, very proud of this conversation and our friendship and you for growing so much and teaching so many people that it's okay to be that way. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Thank you so much, Quinn. I'm so happy to know you.
Yeah,
where can people find me on the internet? My handle on all social media is Instagram and TikTok is what I'm on, is at Jenna Aquino, JennaAquino, one extra O at the end for no reason. And on LinkedIn, again, my name is Jenna Aquino.
Yeah.
I also have music on Spotify and Apple Music and anywhere else you listen. Also just Jenna Aquino.
Yeah.
I'm trying to show up 100% here.
Authentically.
So.
Yeah, you got it. I will make sure that everything is linked. Obviously Jenna is also a wonderful member, employee of Grow Class. So check that out if you're into marketing and kind people who help other people learn and be better. That's it for today. Please give us a like or a follow or a download. If you can leave a review on Spotify or Apple, that's super, super helpful.
Tell Quinn how smart and kind she is.
Yeah,
she deserves it.
You have to. Thank you for listening. You can find us at Say It I Dare You Pod on Instagram and TikTok, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.